Welcome to Unscripted News. It's Bruce Scholl coming to you from the greatest province, the beacon of freedom, the resistance of one world control. I'm here to bring you some amazing information. I have a wonderful guest, and it's very timely. We're going to be talking about banking in general, and then we'll drill down a bit. Before we get started, I do want to say that I'm not your investment advisor, but I do suggest holding gold and silver in your hand. And the company that I suggest is Nugget Stacker here in Calgary. You can reach them at 1-866-644-2121. Reach out even if you're a newbie. They're happy to help you out. Anyway, let's get on to it. Our guest today is Brett Oland from the CEO of Bow Valley Credit Union. I'm really excited to have him here. Thank you very much for joining me, sir. It is a pleasure to always have a chance to talk to you and you to, I guess, filter through some of the mumbo jumbo of the banking world and help us understand what is going on.
Well, yeah, I wish I had a better crystal ball, Bruce. Thanks for having me again. But yeah, it's a wild world out there for sure right now.
It sure is. Lots going on, and I will just sort of touch on hopefully our subjects. But you had recently put out a letter, and I think it was loosely titled the Loonie-Dollar scenario, or something like that.
Yeah, a Loonie-Dollar system. Yep.
Yeah, a Loonie-Dollar system. And one of the other things that came up just recently that's sort of hit my, I guess, purview, talking about X, and I'm probably going to be discussing it tonight on my live as well, is some cash restrictions that we've seen some happening in the UK. And we've obviously seen that here in Canada. Obviously, freezing bank accounts is nothing new, but I did want to get your take on some of that action as well. So before we get into it, do you want to bring up slides now, or do you want to start talking about this and then bring them up a bit later?
Yeah, maybe I'll bring them up a little bit later. This is a complicated topic, and a lot of people aren't involved in finance and macroeconomics like I am. So maybe I'll just try and walk through it first of what I think is happening. And then I can sort of get into the slide deck and describe it that way for more visual people, and then come up with some solutions of how I think Alberta.
This is in relation. Yeah, this is in relation to Canada and U.S. and the U.S. dollar and the loonie. Is just so I get my bearings? Is that right?
Yeah, Europe, the U.S. and Canada are sort of involved in these scenarios, and I've got to point out and give credit where credit is due. A lot of this good work is done by Tom Luongo out of the U.S., and I've just sort of expanded on his base and have come up with solutions of how Canada and especially Alberta can try and mitigate what I think is happening out there in the world. So. Yeah.
Okay. And so would this be obviously down to the everyday customer of banks and credit unions? Is that hopefully who we're speaking to today? I mean, we're not talking to large investors and large stock traders or bankers, really?
No, and like you said right at the beginning, I'm not a financial advisor, so it's important to check the facts and do your own research. But this is more driven towards Canadians, specifically Albertans, to try and get out of the way of what I think is coming.
Okay.
I think ultimately this boils down to a sovereign debt crisis, especially in Europe. And what I mean by that is effectively that with all the social programs and all the debt over in Europe, they're effectively bankrupt. And we saw a bit of a taste of that a couple of years back with Greece. Now that has expanded and is effectively across Europe, and they're looking to have a way out of this.
So when you say they're looking for a way out of this, are you speaking specifically about Europe at this point?
Specifically about Europe, and there's definitely some colonial issues that they have there as they consider the U.S. and Canada basically colonies of Europe, and continue, I think, to hold that superiority complex over Americans and Canadians that effectively were there to support what they want to do.
Right, right.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, where do you want to start?
Sure. So a great starting point is just what I described before. I think we're in the middle of the throes of there's too much debt in the Western world, and countries are looking for a solution to be able to get out from underneath of that.
Okay.
And it's not a surprise to me that we continue to see rhetoric around a bit of warmongering out of European nationals just around continuing the war efforts in Ukraine against Russia. And it's been a standard operating manual procedure that if you get into this type of trouble with your debt, you need to be able to have cover to basically print to high heaven your currency to cover up basically the economic malfeasance that they've had for a number of years. And so it's not a surprise to me that they're trying to do this. But the thing is, they need basically collateral or currency to be able to create this cover up for the debt crisis. And so step one is probably important to understand that the U.S. has the world reserve currency in the U.S. dollar. So what that means is really all world commodities are priced in U.S. dollars. So if even if it's Canadian oil, it's priced in U.S. dollars on the market, and so everyone needs those U.S. dollars to basically transact with the most important commodity out there, which is oil. And as I've discussed previously, the European economy is quite poor. They don't have a lot of products and services that are coming out of Europe.
Right.
Subsequently, the currency is not the greatest. They somewhat shot themselves in the foot because a major provider of that oil and gas to power Europe was cut off when the Ukraine.
NuggetSnacker.com. Our winter silver sale is on now. Get assorted coins and bars for 75 cents per ounce off. While supplies last, we have Sunshine Mint, A-Mark, and Highland Mint product.
Russian war started. So there hasn't been the oil and gas flowing due to sanctions. There was the blowing up of the Nord Stream 2 pipeline, which was a direct line to the German economy that provided low-cost natural gas to effectively power their industry and Europe.
Right.
So it's important to understand that the U.S. dollar is at the crux of what I'm talking about here, and I encourage people to go not only read article written on my open letter, but also the open letter in combination to videos like this, just to try and understand what's happening here, because it is complicated. So anyway,
you know what? I will link to it in the video. I'll make sure to link to it, what I've got. I don't know if you have it posted somewhere that I can bring that up, but I know Jason Lavigne.
Just on my Twitter feed at Brett_Oland. It is on there. If you want to sort of scroll through my X account, you can find it there too. So
okay, you know what? I'll do that right now while you're speaking about that.
Sure. So as we all know, Europe has massive social programs, and effectively, because they need to buy commodities in U.S. dollars, they need a lot of U.S. debt to basically service all these programs and services that they've promised voters. Now, in order so that they don't go insolvent, they basically need to continue to issue this U.S. debt. And so as we know, debt needs to be serviced, and they need access to more and more and more U.S. dollars to be able to service this debt. And so,
Right.
to prevent this collapse of a sovereign debt crisis, like I call it, they effectively need to push the price of their European debt ever lower. And we saw that in the last 5 years, when effectively Europe went to the zero bound with their treasuries issued. So when I say zero bound, say normally a German bond is priced at 5% for a 10-year period or something like that. That's too expensive for them. So what they try and do is effectively push the price of the cost of that debt down into something more manageable. Maybe it's 2.5%, maybe it's 3%. So now, part of the problem with that is if a German bond is paying 2.5% and American bond is paying 5% for the same duration, where do you think that an investor is going to actually go and invest? Where do you think a pension fund or hedge funds can actually go invest?
Right. They're going to go to the U.S., right?
They're going to go to the U.S. And so effectively what happens is it starves the European bond market from those dollars, so they can't continue to support the debt. So they effectively need a mechanism to force down the US dollar debt to a level that they can actually afford. And so now enter what's termed the euro dollar system. The euro dollar system, it's very complicated, but the crux of it is it's US dollars created outside of the US. And so say you're over in Germany again and you need access to US dollars. Say you need 100 billion US dollars. You as a German, as a country, can issue US denominated debt. And so you say, okay, market, I need 100 billion US dollars. I'm going to issue this. But part of the challenge is that the price is too high. And so what they do is they actually fulfill that bond issuance, and they use it to basically push down the cost of the US debt. And so when you're outside of the US and you're creating effectively new US dollars and new US debt, it moves into the Bank of England, and they can do something called infinite rehypothecation. And that $10 word really just means that they can continue to print based on a certain amount of collateral that they have at the base layer. And so that base layer would be that German debt that they issued, US debt that they issued, and then they can infinitely rehypothecate it, which means they can infinitely basically crank up the leverage on that.
Right.
So
10 to 1, 15 to
10
1.
to 1, 100 to 1, 1,000 to 1, that type of thing. And as long as you can service the debt, the game continues. And so now you can effectively turn that $100 billion into trillions of dollars. And so now we're talking that you can actually start manipulating the cost of the US debt. And it's all possible because of the system called LIBOR. And it's the London overnight banking rate is basically used to price this US debt and this infinite rehypothecation. So now in the first term of Trump, he understood this. He understood that basically the tail was wagging the dog of this system and wanted to take control back of it. And so basically Trump in his first term, with the help of the people around them, basically said, we're not pricing things, US debt, using the London rate, the LIBOR rate. We're going to start using something called the SOFR rate. So this is a US standard, a US regulated rate that basically the US is in control of. So now, since they implemented that in July of 2023, we've seen a lot of sparks fly around the world. You know, things started blowing up. Things just didn't seem wonky, and I'm sure everybody got that sense of things. And really, it's just because the US started pricing their own debt again. And so
Mm.
effectively, the gig is up for Europe, and they can no longer manipulate the price of US dollars and US debt with their game of the euro dollar system and infinite rehypothecation.
Wow.
So,
Wow.
and it goes very hand in hand with what Doge is doing, Elon Musk is doing in the United States. And we've all heard stories about that, about how US aid was effectively sending millions, if not billions of dollars over to these NGOs, these non-government organizations. And it was another tool that the powers that be, the elites, the Europeans, whatever you want to call them, were keeping this perpetual debt machine moving.
Right. Right.
So now enter Elon Musk saying, no more. We're cutting off all those US dollars, basically escaping the US control. We're not going to fund this debt problem that you have over in Europe. And then no more are we going to price our debt based on the London system. We're going to base it on the US system, basically cutting off at the knees this euro dollar system. So I might just pause there just to see if you have any questions around that.
I'm just writing down something here. 1 second. Okay. So I get it. So you're saying that as of July 2023, with the SOFR rate, the U.S. is now setting its rate of debt.
Mm-hmm.
It's setting the percentage rate that it's issuing the debt, so that London is no longer in control, or Europe in general, right?
Yeah, it can no longer manipulate the cost of debt in U.S. dollars.
Right. So now the curtain is essentially being opened,
Mm-hmm.
and we're seeing that the emperor has no clothes. Is essentially what we're seeing, right? I mean, they're going to show that they this has all been hidden, and the money laundering or whatever else has been going on, the corruption, the paying off people, the filtering it through wars and all of the other stuff. Now that's all going to come to light. Is that kind of what you're saying?
Yeah, I think so. And Warren Buffett has that old saying that when the tide goes out, we see who's swimming naked. And so effectively that's happening right now. And you can actually see it in capital that's moving around the world. So you see capital moving into the US, you see capital moving out of the US, you see capital moving into Europe, out of Europe, China, Korea, Japan. Like all the markets are just sort of in very big disarray right now.
So that the situation that has been front and center for a lot of alternative media, and I guess mainstream media, about gold moving from London to the US. You're saying that this is part of that as well?
I think it's absolutely part of it. They're trying to use the narrative of tariffs to cover this up, which, I think there's a couple of things to understand about tariffs, but we can get into that later. But yeah, it's absolutely, people around the world recognize something. They can smell something in the air. And in my mind, it's a sovereign debt crisis. And people want to be recapitalized and repatriate that capital before something blows up.
Right. That makes a lot of sense. Before I don't want to get off track here, but I want to ask you your sense, and I'm sure that you probably agree with me, but is Europe not hoping to stay fighting to keep the machine going in the Ukraine and Russia, to obfuscate what's going on as well? I mean, they use war to hide these things because, as you said at the beginning, it's a money printing machine, right? So if you have this large event that's going to obviously take a lot of attention away, you can continue to print the money. Is that correct?
Yeah, no, you're absolutely bang on. And there's nothing more destructive to a currency than building stuff so you can blow other stuff up.
Right.
And you see it in the European rhetoric. Boris Johnson basically had an opportunity to end the war, but made some kind of deal with Ukraine, and the war continued. You continually see the rhetoric of how the U.S. is now the bad guys, right? So they're not supporting this war, and we're going to have to rearm in Europe, and we're going to have to, start training soldiers and buy military equipment to combat the evil Russians. And effectively, it's trying to create an emotional draw around it to cover up a very logical flaw in this sovereign debt crisis.
Well, I saw, and I'm sure that you were probably noticing the same thing, but when Ursula von der Leyen was saying that we're gonna throw 860 billion euros at Ukraine so that they can continue to fight for the next 10 years, and I'm not a banker, but I went, well, where are you going to get this 860 billion euros? Because Germany is broke.
Mm-hmm.
I've talked to a gentleman out of Potsdam, from you probably know him, the LaRouche Institute, and
I
he
don't
said that.
know, but yeah.
Oh, okay, Harvey Schlanger,
Mm-hmm.
but he said that Germany is completely broke. They've deindustrialized, and from a guy looking outside into it, and I think this is right through Europe. But I mean, you followed the new Green Deal, so you shut down your coal plants, you shut down your nuclear plants. You shut off gas, obviously, with the Nord Stream, and then you told the farmers that they're not allowed to throw fertilizer down. You're not allowed to, because you're creating too much CO2, and industries can't go on because it's 4 to 6 times more expensive for electricity. Germany is completely broke, but I mean, I think it's right throughout Europe,
Mm-hmm.
and you don't have any more money to throw at these wars, so I don't know where it's going to come from. Anyway, it looked pretty sad when she came out saying this.
And it's all related,
yeah,
because if you really think about it, who's pushing this narrative around reducing carbon and climate change and things like that? It's all come out of Europe. And it's really because they have no collateral. They don't have any industry. They don't have any product and service to sell. And most important, they don't have any commodities or natural resources. So it would make a lot of sense from a competitive advantage to basically handcuff the rest of the world, to basically say, oh, no, yeah, come up with this, whatever you want to call it, fictitious event that basically prevents the United States, Saudi Arabia, Canada, from using one of their most valuable and important competitive advantages, and that's just our vast resources.
Right. That makes a lot of sense when you say it that way. I mean, it does make a lot of sense to shut down the stronger countries, the U.S. being obviously the most important one, when you handcuff them. But I don't know if they can throw handcuffs on the U.S. right now.
No, not right now, and that's why that they're so pissy at them, and they're trying to drag Canada into this. And I can sort of get into the next piece that I think that's around that, but I sort of touched on it a bit previously. I think the Europeans had delusions that they were going to completely take over Russia and basically get access to all their cheap resources, especially oil and gas, their minerals, and all those deposits, so they could basically recapitalize their system. And they basically, if you can grow your way out of a debt crisis, that's the preferred way to do it. But the thing is, Russia wasn't going to let that happen. But what's really interesting, what's the second largest landmass in the world with massive amounts of resources?
Russia.
Canada,
right. Makes sense.
So enter Mark Carney into the equation, that not only was the governor of the Bank of Canada, but also was the governor of the Bank of England, where you can infinitely rehypothecate all this debt. He understands the euro-dollar system and how they've used it to manipulate the US dollar for years. Wow. And what was really interesting, within 24 hours or 48 hours of Carney coming into power, Canada decided to issue US denominated debt. So it's not in a large enough scale that I think that it would have an impact to create something like the euro-dollar system, but it is definitely going down that path of basically creating something where you could infinitely rehypothecate it with your buddies at the Bank of England and create what I'm terming the Loonie-Dollar system to try and take control of the US dollar again.
So, okay, so let me just make sure I've got the players in place. So Carney, you're saying is wanting to do what they did in Europe with the US dollar and issue debt using the US dollar. Is that right?
Correct. And so basically they can control the price of the US debt to push it to the zero bound as much as they can. But
So
part of the problem is the
yeah.
Canadian dollar is much smaller than the euro. So I term it as it's like sticking an elephant through the eye of a needle. It's just you're going to have to print trillions and trillions of Canadian dollars to be able to try and manipulate the US dollar like they did with the euro.
So does the US not have any control over this system, this Loonie-Dollar system that Carney wants to initiate?
Well, exactly. So back in Trump's first term, they got wise to this and basically cut it off and said, hey, we're moving from LIBOR to SOFR and basically changing who prices the US dollar. Now, Elon Musk with Doge is cutting off all the funding from these NGOs. And so all of a sudden that cuts that off. Now, enter Mark Carney. They're basically trying to come up with a new system like the euro-dollar system. I'm terming the Loonie-Dollar system. But the thing is, Trump and Vance and Bessent, who's the Secretary of Treasury in the U.S., Jerome Powell, they're all wise to this. They understand this. And so the way you cut off the system is disallowing U.S. dollars to flow into Canada. So it's not a surprise to me that this tariff rhetoric is just ramped up to an 11 against Canada, because if he understands this and he knows he has to cut off the flow of US dollars to Canada, one of the best ways to do that is eliminate a trade surplus with Canada. And so what has he been talking about?
Right.
And a great video that came out just about a week ago, it was Trump in an interview, and he was talking about what politician do you basically like in Canada? Do you like Mark Carney, or do you like Poilievre?
Yeah.
And he says, basically he was saying, I don't care which one it is. And then if you watch the video carefully, he directly goes into the trade surplus and basically says, we're getting rid of this trade surplus. So that's a shot across the bow that says, you're not creating this Loonie-Dollar system. We're in control of the US dollar. I don't care what I have to do. And so that is essentially why I wrote this open letter, because Alberta is right in the line of fire with this.
Right.
With 80% of the trade surplus with the United States with Alberta's oil and gas, he eventually will target Alberta oil and gas if he needs to get control of the US dollar.
Wow, that's interesting. Okay, so I just want to, because I might actually throw this video in here, I want to make sure I've got the right one. So he says the person's asking him which politician he likes, whether it's Carney or Poilievre, and then he just says, I don't care, and then he starts talking about tariffs. Is that right?
Yeah, he talks about tariffs and the trade surplus with Canada.
Okay. And the trade surplus. Well, that makes sense. So
and he talks about how Carney is weaker, and he likes dealing with liberals because they're weaker.
that's what I was going to bring the point. That's the point I was going to bring up. I thought it was so funny because that's exactly who you would do. That's who you would be for, is the weaker of the two. And yeah, I mean, why wouldn't you want to deal with the guy that can't even pick up the phone and call you to have a negotiation with you, or say, hey, I'm here in Canada, let's have some tea?
Well, and again, that's another big signal. So Carney acknowledged as Prime Minister that the biggest problem right now, and it's an imminent threat, and may even kick in Emergency Measures Act as a result of it, is these tariffs with the US. Wouldn't you want to go and talk to the president first, right out of the gates, to have that conversation? No. What did he do? And I've got a timeline of events here.
Yeah.
March 9th, 2025, Carney voted in by 150,000 votes, and they eliminated 250,000 Liberal votes.
I was one of them.
It was installed. Yep. There you go. March 10th, the department issued those U.S. denominated debt, like I was talking about. So the very next day,
March 10th, eh? Wow.
March 11th, they actually issued the debt. March 14th, Carney was sworn in. And the morning of March 17th, Carney met with the European leaders in France, Macron. And in the evening of March 17th, Carney met with the King and Keir Starmer, who's the Prime Minister of the UK. So does that really sound like somebody we have an imminent threat to our neighbors to the south, and you fly over to England and France? Does that sound logical to you? Unless,
I said the exact same. Yeah, I said the exact same thing. I mean, you're either going over there to kiss the ring and make sure that you've gotten your marching orders in line, or you're going to then show your strength as a prime minister of Canada, and you're going to go and meet with the biggest threat. I mean, you would meet. I personally would have met in the field, with my army behind me, to have that discussion with the king, king of USA. But no, he went over to, I think, to really get the marching orders from the king and the globalists that I think run him and currently run Canada. So
yeah, and I think you're bang on, and it just makes a lot of sense of what he's trying to do here. But part of the challenge is Trump is not stupid. He's a lot of things, but he's not stupid, and recognizes what's happening here. And the crux of it is the U.S. will not secede control of the U.S. dollar again.
Okay, that's an amazing point. I want to ask you something in regard to the issuance of the U.S. debt. You said March 10th or 11th. As a person representing Canadians, the person that was, supposedly, and I'm using air quotes, voted in to be the leader and the representative of the 40 million-ish Canadians, wouldn't it have been better, because you're so smart in your banking and your understanding of finance, and I'm talking about Mark Carney, because you are smart as well, but as this person that has so much intelligence in regard to finance, wouldn't it be better to be buying gold? Wouldn't that be a better thing for Canadians and actually sitting on gold at that point?
Absolutely. And part of the problem was likely under Mark Carney's guidance, Canada sold all our gold.
Right. Yeah, he probably told Trudeau to sell our gold, right?
And the thing is, this system doesn't work when it's backed by hard money like gold or silver or even Bitcoin.
You mean the behind the curtain fraudulent, or maybe not fraudulent, but this shell game of
all the shell game. And I've long said, fix the currency, or you fix the system. So if you think about a number of these programs, even in Canada, it's just wasted money.
Right.
And if you cut off the flow of money, like Elon Musk is doing in the United States, then all of a sudden all these programs just disappear. Like, people have to find real jobs. They have to be have to find real products and services that they need to basically add to society. There's no more magic money printer to be able to prop up these ridiculous programs. Part of the thing, and why I'm a big gold, silver, precious metals advocate, is because if you went back to a system like this, there's no more games like this.
Right.
And it would likely eliminate war as well, because you can't fund the war without basically devaluing the currency.
Interesting. Before we move on, I don't know if you saw, but we've all seen the stories of how ridiculous this USAID slush fund. Nuggetsnacker.com. Our winter silver sale is on now. Get assorted coins and bars for 75 cents per ounce off.
while supplies last, we have Sunshine Mint, A-Mark, and Highland Mint product.
Has been and sponsoring absolutely ridiculous things around the world. Most recently, though, I don't know if you saw, but the Australian universities, a number of them, were crying because their USAID fund were just shut off, and they were going to be either bankrupt or be, obviously scraping the bottom of the barrel. But in the same breath, they were saying how much they hated the U.S. I thought it was just glorious to listen to.
Well, and that's really what all this is uncovering is the world was basically funded by the U.S. either through the U.S. dollar system or basically the U.S. sending dollars around the world. And effectively what Trump is saying is, no, you need to prop yourself up. Mm-hmm. And he effectively said the same thing to Trudeau, and Trudeau went there hat in hand whining about, well, if we get rid of the trade surplus, then Canada will go bankrupt. And it's like, yeah, no shit. And start living on
figuring
your own
it out,
terms.
man. Yeah.
Quit pulling on our apron strings.
Okay, so I may have messed up your sequence of explaining this.
No, all good.
Yeah. Okay. Is there anything else that you want to touch on right now?
Well, I don't know if you want to get into the slides or if that's too much for information for this.
Well, I mean, we could, if you think it's useful, if you think it's going to be beneficial, for sure.
Sure. Yeah, I'll get into that. Can you see my slides come up there?
No, not yet.
What did I do here? Share. Okay.
Go to share.
Okay.
Yep, I see it now.
Okay.
And I've put it up here.
Okay. So what I'm terming this is the Loonie-Dollar system, and it's important that Alberta recognizes our power in this fight, and I'll get into that. So I went over this, and here's a different way of looking at it, of the European countries basically needing a trade surplus with the United States to pay the coupon payments on all this debt that they've accumulated. And so here's a way to sort of better frame it. And so it basically goes into the detail of how these coupon payments go to the Bank of England, and they have infinite rehypothecation, so they can basically turn billions of dollars into trillions of dollars.
Right.
And they use that euro dollar system to take control over U.S. domestic and foreign debt. And so that was the system that basically was in place until Trump said no more LIBOR, we're moving to a system of SOFR.
And this was actually in his first term, you're saying?
That he started
the
process
change,
around
right?
that. Yeah, he started the process around that, but it wasn't actually implemented until about July of 2023.
I see.
So now here's the current setup that we have in Canada. So the majority of the trade surplus with the US is through oil production. And so we send oil to the United States, they send US dollars to us. Mm-hmm. That oil company sends royalties to Alberta, the Alberta government, as well as they take their margin and they deposit it into commercial banks. And the Alberta government also takes those royalties and deposits in the commercial banks. And if you follow the chain of events, those commercial banks end up at the Bank of Canada and Canadian Treasury. And so if they have access to those US dollars, they could effectively create the same system as the euro dollar system within Canada, creating trillions of dollars with a rehypothecation in the Bank of England. And effectively, you don't need the euro dollar system anymore. You could create a new system to try and control the price of US debt.
And so, okay, just for myself and for my viewers, so you're saying that the euro dollar system, is it defunct? Is it gone?
It's
this would sort of
very ineffective.
Right. So this would sort of be the the crutch or the replacement system?
Yes.
Yeah.
So with things like USAID and the euro dollar system basically cut off at the knees, they need a mechanism, a tool to continue the game and basically control the U.S. Debt.
And so they control this. This is trying to keep the U.S. Weak. Is that the point?
Effectively, that's what it is. And if you think about what a colony is, or if you get down to really the crux of it, it's there's a nation that sits on their high horse or a monarchy or whatever it is, and they go basically pillage the resources of other colonies. And effectively what they're doing is the same thing, but rather than in the old days when they, pillaged them for wheat and minerals and things like that, they're just using money or currency to do it now.
I see. Okay. Wow.
So
I think that's a good explanation. I think that this is really helpful. Thank you.
Well, I've got a few more sides just on how I think we can basically solve this problem.
Great.
And so here's what a proposed solution is, and this is not the best scenario, but it is a scenario. And so the same oil production goes to the U.S. They send U.S. dollars to the oil companies. And instead of royalties going to Alberta, and converting those into U.S. dollars, rather than putting those U.S. dollars into the system, you could use something like gold. So you either get paid those royalties in gold, or what I thought was really interesting over this past weekend, I'd like to think that Danielle Smith read my open letter, is that now she's accepting royalties in the form of oil or bitumen. So all of a sudden, you're not creating that base layer of US dollars that the Canadian government can get access to. You're basically storing your wealth in oil instead of US dollars. My proposed solution is right away convert those US dollars into gold. You could even go down and talk to the Trump administration and say, hey, we'll buy that gold off of you Americans if that so suits you. And it would do two purposes. It would not only put that store of value out of the US dollar and into gold, but it would also reduce the trade surplus that we would have with the US. And so when you needed access to dollars, then you could just easily convert it from gold back into dollars and use those as funding. But the key to it is that you're not allowing the banking system access to those US dollars.
Right, because they're rehypothecating, or that means that they're making into multiples they're making $1 into multiple dollars is essentially it.
Right, and if you think of it this way, so if you put a hose on the yard on full blast, and you come on to it and step on it, and it's basically going to cause a kink in the hose, and the flow of those dollars won't be able to come through the hose as readily. So effectively, you're cutting off the flow of those dollars.
Right, and so Alberta could be the stopgap to this issue, or part of it anyway. I mean, obviously we're only a small portion of Canada and our economy, but I mean it could be a significant portion of reducing that.
Yep, and so enter sort of the best scenario is rather than the oil companies selling directly to the U.S., the Alberta government could buy all the oil production and basically put it into the U.S. there. It's basically just signing a piece of paper. But rather than allowing that U.S. dollars to go into the commercial banking sector in the Bank of Canada, you just put it back and forth between either bitumen or oil, like the Premier has done, or store the value in gold, basically kinking off the ability for those U.S. dollars to flow.
That's nice. Okay, so obviously this throws a kink, using your word, into Mark Carney's eventual plans.
Absolutely.
The globalists, if they were hoping that this could be used as a system to keep the U.S. weak, or the U.S. dollar weak, so it throws a kink into their system. And Albertans and Canadians would come out on top, essentially. I mean, without Carney, right? I mean, he would
Well,
obviously be pissed. Yeah.
Yeah, and really what I was trying to do is come up with a solution so we can continue to keep Alberta oil flowing. Because remember what I mentioned earlier, Trump will not allow the control of the U.S. debt to get out of the U.S. control again. He won't.
Right.
He will completely cut off oil and gas coming from Canada if he needs to.
I see.
Whereas with this solution, it doesn't allow it to perpetuate the system of the Loonie-Dollar system, which is just the spin-off of the Euro-Dollar system. So it's a pretty slick solution, and I really like the idea that Daniel Smith did there of getting the royalties in bitumen versus US dollars, because that's important too. It cuts off.
Right. Wow. This is phenomenal. And so what was the other gentleman's name that you said that Mongo?
So, Tom Luongo, he's
Luongo.
based out of Florida currently. He's coming to the Cornerstone Forum, Sean Newman's event in Calgary on May 10th. I want to sort of get it from the horse's mouth, but I'm leveraging a lot of his work that he's done around this. So
Yeah. Well, I think this is amazing. Was there anything else? Did we finish the slides?
Yeah, we finished the slides. It's a lot, but hopefully it's a little more understandable. What we're trying to explain here. So
I think it was phenomenal. I think it was really, really simple, and the visual made it really simple to understand. So I appreciate you doing that.
Good. And any of your viewers that are still scratching their head, please read those documents, and it might just make the dots connect. So,
okay. Do you know what day that you put out that letter? Because I'm just looking back through your
I
timeline.
initially put out the letter on the 14th of March.
On the 14th. Okay. March 14.
And it's called Battle for the Soul of Alberta.
Battle for the Soul of Alberta. I will find it, and we'll make sure to link it here. But anything else? Oh, so before we go, I guess I just wanted to ask you what your thoughts are. I had just seen, and if you want, I can just pull this up here quickly. 1 second. Well, I'm in X right now. What am I looking for? Damn it. I'm just going to quickly show you this video. And this was the most recent from Jim Ferguson. He had republished this. And I'm going to bring this up.
Sure.
1 second. And like I said, when I first saw this post, I mean, it's nothing new for Canadians because we've seen this for a while now. But obviously, this gentleman went into his bank in the UK somewhere. I'm not exactly sure where. It looks like he tried to take out 2,500 pounds and was told that he wasn't able to. And they asked him for proof of what he was buying. Said he was buying his kid's motorcycle. So anyway, let's just take a look at it and see what you think.
Santander Bank, right?
What are you doing, sir?
I'm filming you and I'm recording this conversation. I'm coming to the bank to withdraw £2,500. Are you going to let me? I've got £11,500 in my account. Are you going to let me? Are you going to let me have the money or not? Hello, are you going to let me have the money or not? Huh?
Unfortunately, I can't remove that restriction that's on there.
You can't remove this restriction. You can't remove the restriction, okay. After your colleague told me that I'm a liar, yeah? So your colleague told me I'm a liar yesterday. I've come in to withdraw £2,500, yeah? And you're not going to let me have my money today, is that right?
Right. You can still use your card.
I'm not, answer the question, please, yeah? I know I can still use my card. Are you going to let me withdraw £2,500 from my account today, yes or no, in the branch?
And what is the £2,500 for, Mr. Jackson?
Buying a motorbike for my son.
Right, okay, so have you got any evidence of the motorbike?
No, I haven't got any evidence of a motorbike at all. No, I haven't got it. So I don't know what one I'm getting yet.
Okay, so if you don't know what you're getting, how do you know how much you need?
Because I've got a budget. I've got a budget of £2,500 for the motorbike.
Anyway, I think you get the gist of it. But
Well, it's just really sad, and that's FinTrack equivalent in Canada that's putting out those regulations, and we've largely allowed this to happen in all countries across the world, and it's really sad. The privacy is just completely disappearing. And another thing about Europe, Christine Lagarde, who's in charge of the European Central Bank, talked about implementing a central bank digital currency in October of 2025. So if that doesn't stink of desperation to basically get access to capital, I don't know what does.
So you're saying that in Europe, you're saying, because you and I were talking about this already, Europe is broke. And so you're saying that they're hoping to issue the CBDC or their digital version. And so then they'll have access to your ones and zeros in your bank account, is what you're saying.
Correct. And then basically the game is over. They can do effectively anything they want. They can create trillions of new euro digital coins, whatever you want to call it.
Right. I mean, it doesn't matter at that point.
And as this video keenly pointed out, good luck in trying to take your money out too. Right?
I mean, like I said, when I reposted this, I said, we've seen this here in Canada. I mean, this is nothing new, but I mean, we should be saying this is garbage. And obviously they have rules set up. You saying it's FinTrack, so they must have rules because they're worried about a run on the banks. Is that not why they're doing that?
I think FinTrack is completely about control. It was first implemented in 2000. Was interesting on the timing. They announced it in like February of 2020, and then the Twin Towers went down in the very next, I think, within a year.
Is that right?
Of that, and they had all these rules around, protecting us from terrorists and things like that, which was because of FinTrack. The timing is
for your safety.
Yeah.
All right. Brett Oland, CEO of Bank Bow Valley Credit Union. Was there anything else that you want to say before we sign off here? Any words of wisdom to our viewers?
Yeah, I think you're on the right track with your viewers. Don't be hyperbolic with this and do your own investigation around it. But I think a good way for people to protect themselves is through precious metals, gold and silver. We can help you do that at Bow Valley Credit Union. We've got a lot of products and services around that. If you just want to check us out at bowvalleycu.com. And I see you're with Nugget Stacker, so that's a great start as well. So.
Yeah, I work with Nugget Stacker, but I also am a customer of the Bow Valley Credit Union, and I've got all my family there as well because we've moved all of our banking over to you, and I really appreciate what you guys are doing over there in this growing network of credit unions. So thank you for doing that.
Well, and thank you for having me, and I appreciate your business at Bow Valley Credit Union.
Well, thanks for being here, sir. I look forward to our next conversation. And any major updates, obviously, that you have, let's speak again soon.
You bet. Thanks very much for having me, Bruce.
Okay, stick around, sir. And if you're still watching, please make sure to share this information. Make sure to get it out to all of your necessary family and friends. And I appreciate you being here and watching Unscrew the News. God bless. Take care. Thank you so much for watching Unscrew the News. I appreciate your participation in freedom in Canada. Share this information and help others to wake up. God bless.